Welcome to Sakshi TV special immigration talk show with lawyer Mr. Parvathaneni. Please note that Sakshi TV now has 4 immigration shows every week. On Tuesdays with Kaveti, on Wednesdays with Prashanti Reddy in English, and on Thursdays with Parvathaneni Garu, and on Fridays with Banu Ninda. Please tune in to ask your questions. If you are an immigration attorney and would like to join our special shows, please email us at usa@sakshi.com or call us at 866-725-7441. Before we begin the show, please note that the information provided on this show is not a legal advice and for general informational purposes only. Sakshi TV or its agents will not be responsible for the use of information. If you need any specific legal advice, you can definitely contact the attorney directly. Mr. Chan needs no introduction, but if you need consultation, you can definitely log on to their firm, which is www.svplawfirm.com site. They provide with a wealth of free information and online tools for the immigrant community. You can definitely check out their law firm. Without any further delay, let's welcome Mr. Parvathaneni on our show. Also note that you can tune in to the show and ask any questions if you have. Mr. Parvathaneni will be very happy to answer all of them. So without any delay, let's welcome Parvathaneni Garu. Chan Garu, welcome back, Andy. How are you?
Pretty good, Shivani. Thank you so much. And thank you all the Sakshi TV viewers all over the world watching this show.
Thank you so much, Parvathaneni Garu, for tuning in. It's again always wonderful to have you on our show. So, Parvathaneni Garu, today we decided that we will talk. I don't know. I didn't really I feel like the topic that we're talking today is a little on the complicated side. It's something called as, what to do if you're, starting your own business. Is that a great deal in USA, or, continuing or having multiple jobs with H-1B? So, before we get onto the topic, I was wondering if you can give any latest immigration updates.
Sure. So I think we're going to talk more about how to start a company in US, how somebody on student status or even H-1 status can become an entrepreneur and start their own business, be a successful businessman in US while being on a non-immigrant visa. So we will talk about that topic. And before we start, just a brief overview on all the latest immigration updates. We heard something that is really going to benefit a lot of Indian nationals working on H-1B in US. And that is Department of State, which normally issues the visas in India, at the consulates in India. So they just sent a proposal to the OMB, and that proposal more than likely will be published once the review is done. And what that would mean for everybody is people will be able to get a visa in US, not at the consulate in India, but in US. And this is more than likely going to start in 2024, early 2024. And that news came out this week in terms of when it's going to be implemented. And it is not for everybody. It is a pilot program. It is going to be limited to 20,000 H-1B people, H-1B employees. It is not going to be for H-4 dependents. So the H-4 dependents still have to go back to India or to a foreign country to get a visa. But at least for the H-1B principal applicants, they can get a visa in US once this proposal is published in the Federal Registrar. Since it's in review, we expect that to happen early 2024. And it is going to be a lot of good news because it's a pilot program. It is limited, but Department of State has indicated that eventually they want to expand the program, which means that people don't have to worry about getting a date at the consulate, getting a visa stamping, and all that hassle. So that is something really good that came out this week. And another good news that came out this week is people who are waiting for their green card. So anybody that has filed a I-485 and they're in the final step of their process, but they have not yet received their green card. Normally, they apply for EAD card or advance parole, and that EAD card, employment authorization document, typically is issued in 2-year increments. So every time they have to go back after 2 years and apply for a renewal. The good news is that USCIS has stated that they will issue for 5 years going forwards. And in our law firm, this week, we have seen approvals that are coming for 5 years. So what that means is anybody that has a pending green card 485 application, they are eligible for getting a EAD card for 5 years, not for 2 years like it used to be. So they don't have to worry back and go back and apply every 2 years. It's 5 years, which is like really awesome. considering that the dates have retrogressed and we don't really have much clarity on how quickly the dates will move ahead. So this 5-year approval for EAD cards, that is going to benefit a lot of people waiting for a green card. And the final update is that the second lottery, the deadline for the H1B second lottery is October 31st. So the deadline is coming very close. And people who are filing for H1B, the companies that are filing for a H1B based on the second H1B lottery, they don't have much time. The deadline is October 31st. So more than likely, I think everybody is in the final stages of filing for the H1B cap cases that were selected under the second lottery.
Yes. Now that Parvathaneni Garu, we've covered majority of the latest immigration updates. Let's get on to our topic for today. So today we decided that we'll talk a little about how one can start their businesses in USA. So can we get on to that? Can anybody with F1 or H1B visa start their own company or become an entrepreneur, or do they have to wait to get their green card to do that?
Sure. So a lot of Indians, they're very hardworking, and a lot of them have entrepreneur. By nature, they're entrepreneurs. They want to start businesses. They want to hire more people. They want to create employment, generate employment, and run a successful business. However, the biggest hurdle for a lot of people is they are on a non-immigrant visa, either on a student visa, either on a H1 visa. So a lot of people they want to become entrepreneurs, but they don't know the rules. They feel that only a US citizen or somebody with a green card can start a business, start a company, like a corporation or LLC, limited liability company. So the general feeling, a lot of people feel that they have to get green cards, they have to get citizenship, and they don't explore because they feel it is a difficult process. The reality is that in US, it is very easy to start a company. Anybody that wants to start a business, it's a very easy process. And even people on a F1 student visa, or even somebody on a H1B visa, they can start a company, they can own the company, they can own 100% of the company. It is allowed. There are certain rules that when somebody is on a non-immigrant visa, they have to think about on what they can do for the company, what they cannot do for the company, and so on. But if the question is, can we start a business and can we own a business? People can start a business, own a company, and start a corporation. And it is not even very tough. In less than a week, somebody can start their own company, a company which can be up and running. So overall, even people who are on H1B and student status, it's a good idea. Anybody that has that entrepreneur mindset, it's a good idea to explore how to start a company and so on, because the process is easy, and the current rules, current law allows even for a foreigner to start and operate their company in US.
Yes. And also, Mr. Parvathaneni, how long does it usually take for somebody to start their own business? Is there, and what are the kind of steps that are involved in this process?
So US has one of the simplest ways of starting a business. Uh, Compared to India, for example, the rules are a lot more simpler. The rules are a lot more straightforward. And what that means is, for somebody that wants to start a company in, I would say, for example, in Texas, somebody can start a company, get a bank account in about 3 days. Very easy process. With $300, they can start a company directly. They can get all the employee identification numbers that they're supposed to get, go to a bank and get even the bank account started in less than 3 days. Very easy process, very simplified process. And so just to give an idea, so the way it works is, in US, the companies, starting a company is based on the state law. And what that means is, if somebody wants to start a company in Texas, they have to go to the Texas Secretary of State website. So every state will have a Secretary of State, and typically that department handles the company creation. So anybody that is wanting to start a company in a particular state, they have to go to the Secretary of State's website. And most of the states, they have an online filing. They can just go online, fill up that form, pay the required fee, and get the company started. For example, in Texas, where I am licensed, the Texas Secretary of State, they are the ones that deal with creating a company. So one can just directly go to the Texas Secretary of State website, create a new entity, select whether they want the kind of entity they want, pay $300. The fee is $300. They can pay $300, put the name of the company they want, and in about 2 days, the company can be created. It's a 10-minute process. I would say it takes about 10 minutes. One can go online, do it. In 2 days, the Secretary of State will come back and say your company is created. This is your certificate of formation. So it's not a very cumbersome process, and it's a very simplified process. Once they get the certificate of formation, they're supposed to go and open the tax identification numbers. So that probably takes another 30 minutes. And the minute they have that, they can go to the bank, open a bank account, and immediately start their business. So it is not something like where they have to get a lot of licenses and stuff for normal businesses. They can get started very quickly. And what that means is because things are so simple, people should definitely explore creating startups, because especially a lot of Indians are in the IT industry. In an IT industry, a lot of startups get created. A lot of people have innovative ideas, and they want to start companies, small startups. So anybody that's thinking about starting a company, it's not the bureaucracy, red tapeism is almost zero. It's a very simplified process, and for any normal person, it should take less than a week for sure.
Yes. Also, Mr. Parvathaneni, can somebody, who just started their, work visa, just started their own business, can they work full time at another company? So let's say they have a job in top, like Google or something, and then can they do a part-time job for the own company that they've created?
So especially a lot of IT professionals, they're working, a lot of times they're working on H-1B visa. They get some innovative ideas and they want to explore by starting their company. It happens all the time. And the biggest question they have is because when they create a startup, initially they might not have a lot of revenue coming in, but they want to explore the idea. So a lot of times people come to us with this question. I want to still continue to work in my full-time job. For example, say I'm working in Microsoft or Google. I want to keep my job, but I want to create a startup, my own company, and I want to explore a legal way of working for this other company on a part-time basis. Is it possible? And the answer to that is it is definitely possible. A lot of people do that, but there are some rules that people have to work with. And the rule is one can always own a company and uh, and be on a non-immigrant visa, be on a H-1B visa or a F-1 visa. They can own the company. However, the caveat is if they want to actively work for that company, either on a full-time basis or a part-time basis, they do have to let USCIS know, and they do have to file a H-1B petition in most cases. So they have to get authorized. And again, that is not a very complex process. It is a simple process, but there is a process they have to follow in order to work for that company. And what that means is somebody can keep a full-time job, say working in Microsoft or Google, and do request USCIS for authorization to concurrently work for their own startup. They can do that, and people do that all the time. And by doing so, by notifying USCIS that they're on a non-immigrant visa, but want to work for their own company, they can continue to work for their own company. So there are certain rules they have to go through, but it is possible. And a lot of people, they do have full-time jobs. They do create a new company, their startup, and do work for their startup. It is possible as long as they're making sure they're following all the immigration rules and the DOL rules.
Yes. Mr. Parvathaneni, is it possible that someone who is on the H-1B visa and started their own company, hires someone or sponsors some non-immigrant and H-1B?
So we also see this scenario where somebody starts a company, but because they're having another full-time job or another jobs, they're not really able to work for this company, but they have innovative ideas and they want somebody else to run their company, and they want the company to be expanded. So the common question that I also get is, we are on H1 and this company belongs to us. Somebody on H1 owns 100% of the company. But now, can this company that is owned by a H1B person or say a student, F1 student, can that company sponsor H1B visas? Can they do it? Can they sponsor green cards? So that's a common question we get. And the answer for that is, even if a company is 100% owned by a foreign national, say a H1B employee or F1 student, that company, if it is operating in US and if it has business, if it is doing business, if that company wants to hire somebody on H1, that company wants to sponsor for a green card, that is legally possible. A lot of companies are owned by H1B employees, and that company, even though it is owned by a foreign national, they can still sponsor for H1Bs. They can still sponsor for green cards. That is still possible, and one can do that. There are certain rules that one has to follow, but it is definitely possible.
Yes. And also, can one start a company and have their, the main employee, sponsor their H1B and also, the green card sponsorship? Are both H1B and green card sponsorship allowed if the employee is also still under the process of green card?
Sure. So another question we also see, the question that you asked, it's a very common question. The question is, I want to start my own company, and I'm on H1B. So I want this company to file my H1B, and I also want this company that I own to file my own green card. Is it possible? In general, if somebody owns a company, that company can file that person's H1B. More than likely, it is not a problem. The only rule is it has to be disclosed. So when the filing is done with USCIS, there is a question that says, does the beneficiary, the H1B employee, does the H1B employee own this company or a part of the company? So as long as that is disclosed, it is okay. USCIS does permit somebody to work for their own company on H1B visa, even if they own that company. That is doable. The other part is, can that company sponsor somebody's green card? In certain cases, it is possible. In certain cases, it is not possible. If somebody is trying to look for sponsorship through EB2 or EB3 category, or through a category that requires labor certification, more than likely it is not possible. DOL will not approve the perm. In certain categories, for example, somebody wants that company to sponsor EB5, it could be possible. So it's a complex question. So H1B part is not a difficult question. So the H1B can be sponsored. For the green card, there are certain ifs and buts. So more analysis is required. But for most cases, most of the Indians get green cards through EB2 or EB3 through labor certification. If somebody wants to go through that EB2 or EB3 processing, if somebody owns the company, more than likely it cannot be done, and that green card process will fail.
Yes. And also, Mr. Parvathaneni, recently we've been hearing that there are a lot of H1B, officials that are like basically working so many different jobs and are getting paid so many different times. So when you're having an H1B, are you integrated to only work for one specific company, or even if you are working, part-time, is it even legal because you're getting paid multiple times from multiple different companies? Is there any legal actions that, the USCIS can take, or do they have to go through any legal matters?
Sure. So in the last 2 years, especially right after COVID, there was a very, very severe shortage of labor, the workforce. So both skilled and unskilled. There was a lot of shortage in US. And what that meant is, all of a sudden, because of the shortage, a lot of hardworking employees, they started getting multiple offers. So they're working on H1B with the company. And they were also getting offers from other companies. And what this meant is, people wanted to work hard. They work with one company full time, but because they also have a second offer, they wanted to explore and see if they can work with the second companies simultaneously, because people have time. I mean, they work for one company for 8 hours, so 40 hours a week, and then they have a lot more time, Saturdays, Sundays, and evenings, and so on. And USCIS, they already have a rule, and the rule is, there is a way where somebody can do a second job, third job if required. And this is called working on a concurrent H1B visa. So people can do a second job. They can work for a second employer. They can even work for a third employer. But they have to follow this process of filing a concurrent H1B. And what this means is, say Microsoft has their primary H1, and say Google also wants them to work for them. So the second company, what they will do is they will file another concurrent H1B petition. And by doing so, the employee can work at the first company, the employee can also work at the second company. So it is possible. And we had some cases where during that COVID time, there were some COVID doctors. They were even doing 3 and 4 simultaneous jobs, with 3, 4 employers. And that is possible because they're able to work multiple jobs. And there was a genuine and a bona fide need. And because this second employer, third employer, they were filing it with USCIS, they're able to work. And what that means is if somebody gets an opportunity to work a second job or a third job, it is completely legal. The only thing to keep in mind is this new company has to file a concurrent H1B. And by filing a concurrent H1B, the employee can work for a second company or a third company and get paid by multiple companies. So legally, it is possible. One just has to make sure that they're following all the H1B rules and following the process to ensure that they're working for this second or third company and getting paid from this second or third company.
Yes. Mr. Parvathaneni, how is the layoff situation happening in USA? Because, once somebody is laid off and, they've lost their jobs, people usually have this thing that they have to, vacate the country as soon as possible or within like a 60 period of daytime. So, days time. So what is the situation right now? Are people getting laid off very often, especially in the IT sector? What are your views on it?
Sure. So layoffs are something that are very painful for anybody, even for somebody who are citizens, green card holders, or even non-immigrant visa holders. For anybody, layoffs is always painful because somebody has a career and somebody has a family, and all of a sudden, when there is a layoff, it messes up everything. So in the last year and a half, and especially over the last year, we have been hearing about a lot of layoffs from these big IT companies such as Microsoft and a lot of the big names. So it does sometimes people get worried, and a lot of the questions we get are layoffs real, and is there a recession happening in US? Is the job market really bad, and so on. So layoffs are happening, but I don't think the job market is that bad because the job market is still tight and people are still finding jobs. Layoffs are happening because some companies, apparently what happened is during COVID time, they went into a hiring frenzy. They overhired people. So it looks like those companies are doing layoffs, but in reality, there seems to be a genuine shortage in IT sector from a lot of companies. And what we are noticing is people are getting laid off, but people are finding a job. And the reason we know it is because when people get laid off, they go and find another employer, and the other employer has to file a H1B petition. So we do see people are getting laid off. We get another new company filing, and the new company telling us somebody got laid off, so we have to make sure we file it within the deadline, and so on. So we are seeing a lot of people changing jobs, moving jobs, but we are not really seeing people sitting idle and in general. And also, when we file for the green cards, people have to advertise and look for. They have to do a labor market test to see if there are people available locally or not. And most of the time, they're not even getting good resumes. And what that means is there is still shortage in IT sector. Layoffs are happening as a part of the industry, but luckily people are able to find jobs, and the job market is not that bad, and it does seem pretty decent so far. Maybe not as attractive as it was a year back, where people are finding multiple jobs very easily. Maybe it is not that attractive, but it's not as bad as where people are jobless, and it is not bad where the unemployment rate is very high. So people are still doing good. And the only thing to keep in mind is if somebody loses a job, and if somebody is on H1B visa, the timer starts. The timer is for 60 days. And within 60 days, they're supposed to find a job. If they don't find a job, they're supposed to take some action. And if not, the future H1s will be jeopardized. And normally people are aware of it. But again, it's a good idea that everybody remember that there is 60-day clock. And within 60 days, they're supposed to find a new job. If not, they're supposed to take some action. And typically that means they're supposed to leave the country, or if they have like a temporary need to file a change of status petition, depending on their situation. And as long as they're making sure they're not missing that 60-day clock, the future H1s will not have any issue.
Yes. And also, Mr. Parvathaneni, in the last couple of episodes that we did discuss a lot about the multiple registrations fraud that were happening. So how is the situation right now? Are people still filing multiple registrations, and what are the consequences that they are facing right now?
Sure. So the last year's cap H1B quota, we had a lot more issues with multiple registration because a lot of them applied. A lot of them filed for the H1s after the lottery. And USCIS, they have a big database. They have very good tools to do data analysis. They were able to find patterns of collusion between employers because they were related through family relationships and so on. And we got a lot of notices. And again, this year, what happened is right after the lottery, USCIS came out with a big announcement and they gave out the statistics and they gave out a big warning. They said, we do have data, and they said if people are colluding, they will go after them. And this year, luckily, what happened is because USCIS gave that warning, a lot of people were sane enough, even though they made a mistake during the lottery time and they colluded. Clearly, they colluded because of the data. I think most of them were smart enough not to continue and stop the fraud and not do the filing. However, I think even this year, unfortunately, some people did not heed to the warning. In spite of repeated USCIS warnings, repeated warnings from everybody, some people still have done the filing. And what that means is, even this year's cap quota, we have seen a few, not as many as last year, but we have seen a few notices talking about multiple registration. And USCIS has the data. So they will clearly prove it. They'll say this company, that company applied. And not only that, these companies know each other because they're related, because they have a common owner, or they're in the same city, and they have a same tax preparer, same registered agent, same attorney. So they will say that these companies could be related, and they will give the data out. So even this year, unfortunately, we are still seeing some people, not a lot. Last year it was bad. This year it is not as bad as last year in terms of the actual filings. But even this year, we did see some multiple registration issues. And hopefully next year, USCIS is already in the process of trying to make some changes to the process. So next year, we're hoping that this multiple registration issue will completely come to a point where it is not an issue at all. But this year, definitely, we are still seeing just not as bad as last year.
Yes. I think, Mr. Parvathaneni, we can definitely cover more in the next episode. Thank you again for tuning in. It was lovely again, as usual, for me to have you on our show. Thank you again for the viewers for tuning in. You're watching Sakshi TV with me, Shivani Raj.